The bottle was cold in my hands. Too cold for something that had been sitting in a glove compartment under the Georgia sun. I turned it over slowly, reading the label 3 times before my brain would accept what my eyes were seeing. Personal, lubricant, expensive brand, the kind you don't buy at Walmart, the kind you order online when you don't want neighbors seeing it in your cart. My husband Julian's car, his glove compartment, a bottle I'd never seen before, 68 years old, and this was the first time my hands had ever touched one of these things. 47 years of marriage, and Julian had never needed anything like this with me. My wedding ring caught the afternoon light as I stood there in our driveway on Magnolia Street. The diamond he'd given me in 1977 suddenly felt like a lie pressed against my skin. But what those two didn't know, what nobody in our quiet Atlanta suburb knew, is that this simple retired teacher had $1.2 million in investment accounts in my name only, money. I'd been quietly growing for decades while everyone assumed I lived paycheck to paycheck on my teacher's pension, and I was about to burn their world to the ground. My name is Gloria Patterson. I'm 68 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered my husband was sleeping with our daughter-in-law and how I made sure the entire city of Atlanta would never forget what happened when they underestimated me. I'm so glad you're here listening to this. If you've ever been betrayed by people you trusted most, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I want to know how far this story reaches, because what I'm about to tell you proves that revenge isn't always about violence. Sometimes it's about precision, strategy, and a little bit of industrial strength adhesive. Let me take you back to October 15th, 2024, the day everything changed. I'd driven Julian's Buick to the grocery store because my Honda was getting an oil change. Nothing unusual, just another Tuesday afternoon in suburbia. But when I reached for the registration paperwork to verify the insurance, my fingers brushed against that bottle. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of car product. My generation didn't grow up with these things advertised on every website. But the label was crystal clear, and the purchase date on the receipt tucked underneath made my blood run cold. Bought 3 weeks ago. At a pharmacy 15 miles from our house. On a Thursday afternoon when Julian told me he was playing golf with his buddies from the Rotary Club. I sat in that Kroger parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at apple pies through the windshield, my chest compressed by something heavy and sharp. The air conditioning blasted cold air that I couldn't feel. My reflection in the rearview mirror showed a woman I barely recognized, gray hair pulled back in the same bun I'd worn for 40 years, reading glasses on a chain, cardigan despite the heat, looking exactly like what everyone expected. A harmless, old teacher. Someone to be dismissed, ignored, cheated. But my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady as I pulled out my phone and took photos of that bottle from every angle. The receipt. The exact position in the glove compartment. Evidence. That's what they taught me in all those crime shows I watched while Julian claimed to be at his club meetings. I drove home and made pot roast for dinner, set the table with our good plates, poured Julian his usual bourbon and water, smiled when he kissed my cheek and told me about his exhausting day at the hardware store. Every word tasted like ash in my mouth, but I swallowed them down with my green beans and kept my face pleasant. Because I'd taught high school English for 37 years. I knew how to read subtext, how to spot a lie, how to wait for the perfect moment to spring a quiz nobody studied for. That night, while Julian snored next to me, I lay awake, calculating. Our house was in my name, an old legal quirk from 1982 when his credit was bad and mine was pristine. The investment accounts were mine. The car I usually drove was mine. On paper, I owned almost everything. He thought I was too old, too simple, too trusting to notice what he was doing. He was about to learn how expensive that assumption would be. The next morning, I hired Marcus Chen, a private investigator whose card I'd found in the teacher's lounge 2 years ago when a colleague was divorcing. Young guy, early 30s, looked like he should be selling insurance, which made him perfect. I need to know if my husband is having an affair, I told him in his office downtown, where the coffee tasted like burnt rubber and the walls were covered in diplomas nobody probably checked. Marcus didn't even blink. Do you have any evidence? That makes you suspicious? I showed him the photos on my phone. His eyebrows went up. When did you find this? Yesterday, but I think it's been going on longer. I folded my hands in my lap, the same position I'd held them in during 4,000 parent-teacher conferences. Calm, professional, in control. I need documentation, photos, receipts, everything that would hold up in court. Court? He leaned back in his chair. Most people just want to know. You already sound like you're planning something. I'm planning justice, I said quietly. There's a difference. He quoted me $3,000 for 2 weeks of surveillance. I wrote the check from an account Julian didn't know existed. Money I'd saved from my salary over 37 years, invested carefully, grown into something substantial. My teacher's pension was $2,800 a month. Nobody questioned how a retired teacher afforded anything. We were supposed to be poor, struggling, invisible, perfect cover. Marcus called me 4 days later. Mrs. Patterson, we need to meet. In person. Today. His voice had that particular tone, the one that meant the news was worse than expected. I met him at a Waffle House off I-85 because nobody pays attention to old women eating hash browns alone. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Brown and ordinary, containing photographs that would detonate my marriage. I'm sorry, Marcus said. But you need to see these, Julian. In a motel parking lot off Buford Highway. The kind of place that rents rooms by the hour and doesn't ask questions. With Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, my son Daniel's wife, mother of my 2 grandsons, the woman who'd cried at our family table just 6 months ago, begging for help with rent, because times were tough. The woman I'd written a $5,000 check to, from my secret account, because family helps family. In the photo, Julian's hand was on her lower back, that same hand that had held mine at our wedding, that had signed our mortgage, that had touched our son when he was born. She wore designer jeans that cost more than my monthly grocery budget and a leather jacket that smelled like money stolen from someone else's dreams. Her hair was professionally highlighted, those expensive caramel streaks that took 4 hours at a salon I couldn't afford on a teacher's pension. Except I could afford them. I could afford anything. I just chose not to waste money on people who didn't deserve it. There's more, Marcus said, pulling out a second set of photos. They've been meeting twice a week for at least 3 months, always the same motel. They're not being careful. They think nobody's watching. A third set of documents, bank statements. These are transfers from your joint account with Mr. Patterson, small amounts, $200 here, $500 there. Always on days when they met. Total of $8,000 over 3 months. My coffee had gone cold. The hash browns sat untouched on my plate, congealing in grease that mirrored the sick feeling in my stomach. And this, Marcus said, his voice dropping lower, might be the worst part. He showed me copies of documents, legal papers. Someone had been attempting to forge my signature on a property deed, trying to add Julian's name as co-owner of our house, the house that was mine, that I'd protected for decades. The clerk at the county office flagged it as suspicious because the signature didn't match your driver's license on file. That's what stopped it from going through. But Mrs. Patterson, they were trying to steal your house. The Waffle House suddenly felt like it was underwater. Sounds muffled, lights too bright, everything tilted wrong. For 47 years, I'd built a life, raised a son, taught other people's children, saved money in secret because some part of me always knew I might need it, some instinct that whispered, protect yourself. And my husband, the man who'd promised to love me in sickness and health, was trying to rob me blind with our son's wife. What do you want me to do? Marcus asked quietly. I looked at those photos. Again. Julian's face, laughing at something Vanessa said, happy in a way I hadn't seen him in years, alive with a joy he never showed me anymore. Something inside me shifted. Not broke, that's too clean a word. It transformed, like metal heated until it changed form, became something harder, sharper, capable of cutting through anything in its path. Keep watching them, I said, my voice calm as Sunday morning church bells. I need to know their schedule, when they meet, where they go, every detail. Are you thinking divorce? Marcus gathered his papers carefully. I'm thinking much bigger than that. I drove home and made spaghetti for dinner. Used the sauce Julian loved, with extra garlic. Set out the good wine. Smiled when he complained about his back hurting from working all day. Every smile felt like a weapon I was sharpening, because they'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed I was too old, too trusting, too broken to fight back. Everyone in Atlanta would know exactly what happens when you underestimate a retired teacher with $1.2 million and a perfect memory for every single lie you ever told. Marcus called me on October 23rd, 8 days after I'd hired him. Mrs. Patterson, I have audio. His voice was tight, professional, the kind of tone doctors use before bad news. You're going to want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made 47 years of breakfasts, packed 47 years of lunches, celebrated 47 years of anniversaries with cake and candles and lies I didn't know were lies. Play it, I said. The recording was from a parking lot, their motel. October 21st, 2:17 p.m., a Thursday afternoon when Julian told me he was at the VA getting his blood pressure checked. Static crackled, then Vanessa's voice cut through, sharp and clear. We can't keep doing this, Julian. Daniel's getting suspicious. My husband's laugh, that deep rumble I used to love. Danny doesn't notice anything. He's too busy with those damn video games. Kid's 42 and still acts like he's 20. The way he said it, like our son was stupid, disposable, something to mock. But what about Gloria? Vanessa's voice dropped, lower. What if she finds out? Gloria? Julian laughed again, harder this time. Baby, Gloria's been half asleep for 20 years. She doesn't even notice when I come home at midnight. As long as her TV shows are on and her coffee's hot, she's happy as a clam. That woman wouldn't recognize a clue if it bit her in the ass. Something cold slithered down my spine. Not anger yet. Something worse. The feeling of being erased, made invisible by someone who'd promised to see me forever. Besides, Julian continued, and I could hear the smile in his voice, the satisfaction of someone getting away with something. Once we sell that house, we'll have enough to start fresh. Florida, maybe, or Arizona. Somewhere warm where nobody knows us. Can you actually sell it? Vanessa asked. I thought it was in her name. It is, but I've been working on that. Papers rustling in the background. Got a guy who can fix the deed. Add my name. Once that's done, Georgia law says I own half. We sell, split the money, and Gloria can go live with Danny for all I care. She'll get her pension. She'll be fine. My hands had started trembling. I pressed them flat against the kitchen table, feeling the wood grain press into my palms. Solid, real, unlike everything I thought I knew about my life. How much is the house worth? Vanessa's voice had that edge of greed. That hunger that sounds like metal scraping glass. Appraiser said $380,000. We bought it for $45,000 in 1982. Paid it off 15 years ago. It's all equity now. So $190,000 each. She was calculating out loud. That plus what we've been saving from the joint account, $8,000 so far. I'm taking it slow so she doesn't notice. Old woman barely checks the statements. She still balances her checkbook by hand like it's 1975. They both laughed. My vision blurred. The kitchen swam. I stood up too fast and had to grab the counter as nausea rolled through me in waves. Made it to the sink just in time to vomit up my lunch. Tuna sandwich, apple slices. Everything I'd eaten while humming along to my radio, completely unaware that my entire life was being sold off in $500 increments. The recording kept playing. "What about Danny?" Vanessa asked. "When are you going to tell him?" "Tell him what?" "That his dad's been fucking his wife?" Julian's voice was casual, amused, like he was discussing baseball scores. "We don't tell him anything. When the house sells, I'll say Gloria and I are downsizing, moving to a retirement community. He'll believe it. Kid believes everything." "He still thinks I'm faithful," Vanessa said, and I could hear the smile. "Still, thinks I'm working late on real estate deals. God, he's so easy to fool." "That's because he's weak, always has been. Got that from Gloria's side. No backbone. Our son. The baby I'd pushed into this world during a thunderstorm in 1982. The child I'd rocked through colic and fever and nightmares. The man who called me every Sunday to check if I needed anything. Weak. No backbone. Gloria's fault. I'd stopped vomiting, but I couldn't stop shaking. When can we be together for real? Vanessa's voice had gone soft, pleading. I'm tired of motels, tired of sneaking around. Soon, baby, I promise. 6 months, maybe less. Just need to get that deed fixed and the house on the market. Then we're gone. New life, just you and me. What about your pension? Gloria's? Mine. Follows me wherever I go. Hers is hers. Not my problem after the divorce. She can have the pension and whatever's in her personal account. Probably has a few thousand saved up. She's cheap as hell, never spends money on anything. Meanwhile, we'll have close to 200,000 to start fresh. The recording ended with car doors closing and engines starting. I stood at my sink, staring at the faucet I'd replaced 3 years ago when Julian said we couldn't afford a plumber. The faucet I'd installed myself after watching YouTube videos and making 3 trips to Home Depot. Cheap as hell. A few thousand saved up. I had $1.2 million. Money I'd invested so carefully that it had grown from $50,000 in 1995 to 7 figures. Money from my salary that I'd skimmed off the top before Julian ever saw it. Money from a small inheritance from my mother that Julian never knew existed, because it came after he stopped paying attention to me. They were stealing my house, my dignity, my marriage, my relationship with my son, and they thought I had a few thousand in savings. Marcus's voice cut through. I'd forgotten he was still on the line. Mrs. Patterson, are you okay? Mrs. Patterson? I'm here. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else's body. There's more, Marcus said carefully. Do you want me to continue? Yes. He'd been following them for 8 days. They met every Tuesday and Thursday. Always 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., always the same motel, the Starlight Inn on Buford Highway, where rooms cost $45 for 2 hours and the clerk didn't look up from his phone. They'd been stealing from our joint account for 3 months. Small amounts. Careful. Professional. They'd practiced this. Planned this. This wasn't a sudden passion. This was a long-term strategy to rob me blind. And I found something else. Marcus continued. Your daughter-in-law has been meeting with a real estate agent. Got paperwork for listing your house. She's been pricing it, getting comps, preparing. But she can't list it. It's not in her name. She's acting as if it will be. She's got an appointment scheduled for November 15th to sign listing papers. 3 weeks from now. My guess is they think the deed will be fixed by then. November 15th. The same day as our 47th wedding anniversary. I started laughing. Not funny laughter, the kind that sounds like glass breaking, the kind that makes you wonder if you're losing your mind or finally finding it. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to keep watching them, I said. Every meeting, every transaction. I want documentation of everything, photos, audio, receipts, everything that will stand up in court. Are you calling a lawyer? Not yet. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, rinsed the sink, poured myself a glass of water that tasted like metal and betrayal. First, I need to understand the full scope, how deep this goes, who else knows? Who else? Marcus sounded confused. My son Daniel. I need to know if he knows. If he's part of this? Marcus was quiet for a beat. You think your son is helping them? I think my son is married to a woman who's sleeping with his father. Either he's the biggest fool in Georgia, or he knows something. I need to find out which. That's going to be harder to. I'll pay double your rate, I said flatly. I want to know if my son is helping destroy me, or if he's just another victim. I need to know who my allies are. I'll make some calls, Marcus said. See what I can find out. But Mrs. Patterson, you should know, this kind of betrayal, this deep, it changes people. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that it's worse than you think. It's already worse than I thought, I said quietly. That's why I need to know exactly how bad it is before I decide what to do about it. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, watching the afternoon light stretch across the floor, the same light that had stretched across this floor for 42 years. Since 1982, since we'd bought this house with my good credit and his bad decisions, my house, not ours, mine. At 6 p.m., Julian came home, kissed my cheek, smelled like the same cheap cologne he'd worn since 1979. Nothing expensive, nothing that would make anyone look twice. What's for dinner? He asked, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. Pot roast, I said. Your favorite. You're an angel, Gloria. I don't know what I'd do without you. He walked into the living room, turned on the TV, cracked open a beer, settled into his recliner like a king on his throne. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, studied him. This man who'd shared my bed for 47 years. This stranger who was trying to steal my house and mock my son and throw me away like trash when he was done. Cheap as hell. A few thousand saved up. Wouldn't recognize a clue if it bit her. I'd taught English literature for 37 years. I'd taught Romeo and Juliet 18 times. Taught Hamlet 23 times. Taught Macbeth until I could recite it in my sleep. I knew how these stories ended. The ones who underestimated the quiet woman in the corner always learned the same lesson eventually. Some debts can only be paid in blood. Or in this case, in public. Humiliation so complete that Death poured his beer, laughed at his jokes about the weather and the neighbor's dog and the rising cost of groceries, and in my mind, I was already planning. Because Marcus was wrong about one thing. I wasn't changing into someone new. I was finally becoming who I'd always been underneath. Someone who'd spent 47 years being patient, being kind, being forgiving. Someone who'd just run out of patience. And they were about to discover that retired teachers don't just know literature. We know chemistry. We know physics. We know exactly which supplies are available at any hardware store and exactly what happens when you mix the wrong things together. Or in this case, replace the right things with the wrong things. Starting with that bottle in Julian's glove compartment, the one he thought I'd never found, the one that was about to change everything. October 24th, 2024. 22 days until they planned to list my house. 22 days until my 47th wedding anniversary would become the day my husband tried to sell my life out from under me. I wasn't going to wait that long. At 9 a.m., I walked into the law offices of Rodriguez and Associates on Peachtree Street, 7th floor, glass walls, leather chairs that cost more than my first car. The receptionist looked at me the way people always looked at retired teachers, with that polite dismissal reserved for old women who probably needed directions. To the bathroom. I need to see someone about property fraud, I said calmly. And I need to see them today. Something in my voice must have cut through. She picked up the phone. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Patricia Rodriguez herself. Early 50s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. The kind of woman who'd built her career destroying people who thought they could get away with things? Perfect, Mrs. Patterson, she said, folding her hands on her mahogany desk. Tell me everything. I did. The bottle, the recordings, the forged deed attempt, the stolen money, the affair with my daughter-in-law, every detail laid out like evidence in a murder trial, because that's what this felt like. Murder, not of my body, of my dignity, my trust, my entire life. Patricia didn't interrupt once, just listened, taking notes in handwriting so neat it could have been printed. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. How much is your house worth? She asked. Finally, $380,000. Appraised last year. And you said you have other assets? I hesitated. This was the moment, the reveal. The thing I'd kept secret for decades. I have $1.2 million in investment accounts, in my name only. My husband doesn't know about them. Patricia's pen stopped moving. Her eyes met mine. Mrs. Patterson, you need to understand something. In Georgia, even if accounts are in your name alone, if the money was earned or accumulated, during the marriage, it could be considered marital property in a divorce. The initial $50,000 came from my salary that I diverted before my husband saw it. Over 29 years, from 1995 to 2024. I invested carefully. It grew. He never knew. It existed. And the rest? Inheritance from my mother in 2003. $75,000. She left it specifically to me, not to us. I invested that too. The remainder is capital gains. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Did your husband ever sign tax returns that included this income? I always did our taxes. He signed without reading. I was careful to keep the accounts separate, the inheritance properly documented as separate property. A slow smile spread across Patricia's face, the kind of smile a shark makes right before it strikes. Mrs. Patterson, do you know what you have? Here? Evidence of adultery and attempted fraud? You have leverage, complete, total leverage. Your husband thinks he's stealing from a poor retired teacher with a few thousand in savings. He has no idea you could buy and sell him 10 times over. She tapped her pen against her legal pad. What do you want? Divorce? Criminal charges? Both? I want justice, I said quietly. I want him to lose everything he tried to steal from me. I want Vanessa exposed. I want my son to know the truth. And I want the whole city of Atlanta to know what happens when you underestimate a retired teacher. Patricia's smile widened. I think we can arrange that, but first we need more evidence, solid, indisputable proof that will hold up in criminal court, not just divorce court. Because if you want to destroy them, we need to prove intent, conspiracy, fraud, not just adultery. I have a private investigator. He's been documenting everything. Good. I'm going to need copies of everything he has. Audio, photos, bank statements. And Mrs. Patterson, I need you to do something that's going to be very difficult. What? I need you to act normal. Keep playing the role they think you're playing. The oblivious wife, the easy target. Because the moment they realize you know, they'll cover their tracks. Destroy evidence. We need them confident, comfortable, making mistakes. My hands clenched in my lap. You want me to serve him dinner and smile while he's plotting to steal my house? I want you to be the best actress Georgia has ever seen. For 3 weeks. Can you do that? I thought about 47 years of swallowing my pride. 47 years of making peace when I wanted to make war. 47 years of being patient. Yes, I said, I can do that. Patricia stood, extending her hand. Then let's burn their world down, legally, thoroughly, and in a way they'll never recover from. We shook. Her grip was firm, strong, the handshake of someone who'd destroyed many, many overconfident men before. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, something that tasted like metal and fire and victory. Hope. That afternoon, Marcus called again. Mrs. Patterson, we need to meet. I found something. Something bad. We met at the same Waffle House. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept, like what he was about to tell me had kept him up all night deciding whether to say it. "Your son, Daniel," Marcus said slowly. "I've been watching him, following him, checking his financials." My heart stopped. "Is he part of it?" "Yes and no." Marcus pulled out another envelope, thinner this time. 3 months ago, Vanessa told Daniel she wanted to invest in a business opportunity, asked him to take out a $15,000 personal loan. He did, put up his car as collateral. What business? There is no business. The money went into a joint account Vanessa opened with your husband. They've been using it to fund their affair. Motel. Rooms, dinners, gifts. Daniel thinks his wife is starting an online boutique. She's actually financing her affair with his father using his money. The Waffle House tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. "But here's where it gets worse," Marcus continued. "Daniel's been asking questions about money, about where Vanessa goes on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Last week he followed her, saw her go into the Starlight Inn, didn't see who she met, but he knows something's wrong." "Has he confronted her?" "Not yet, but he's gathering evidence, checking phone records. He hired his own investigator 2 days ago." Marcus paused. "Mrs. Patterson, your son is about to discover his wife is cheating on him. He just doesn't know it's with his father yet." Something cracked inside my chest, relief mixed with horror. Daniel didn't know. Daniel wasn't part of it. Daniel was another victim. "We need to tell him," I said immediately. Before he what? Confronts Vanessa? Confronts Julian?" "Mrs. Patterson, if he does that now, they'll know their cover is blown. They'll stop the house fraud, destroy evidence, you'll lose your leverage. But he's my son. He's being destroyed by this, using his own money to fund." I couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus leaned forward. "I know, and I'm sorry, but you need to make a choice. Protect your son now and lose the ability to prosecute, or wait 3 more weeks, gather all the evidence, and then give your son the complete truth, along with the power to destroy them both in court. 3 weeks, 21 days. Could I watch my son suffer for 3 more weeks, knowing what I knew?" "There's something else," Marcus said, and his voice dropped so low I had to lean in to hear him. "I pulled your husband's recent search history. I can do that. I have software. It's legal if you're the account owner, and you said you pay for the internet." "What did you find?" He pulled out printed screenshots, Google searches, from Julian's laptop. "How to collect life insurance on spouse. Natural causes of death in elderly women. Heart attack symptoms versus cardiac arrest. Average time for life insurance payout. The dates, all within the last 6 weeks." My coffee cup slipped from my hand, crashed against the table, brown liquid spreading like blood across the laminate. "Mrs. Patterson, he's planning to kill me." The words came out flat, emotionless, because my brain couldn't process the emotion attached to them yet. "My husband is planning to murder me." "We don't know that for sure. These searches could be..." "Marcus, look at the pattern. He's trying to steal my house. He's draining our accounts. He's researching how to make my death look natural and collect insurance money." My voice was shaking now, not with fear, with rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. What's the next logical step? Marcus was quiet, because we both knew the answer. "I need you to find out if there are any life insurance policies on me that I don't know about," I said. My voice had gone cold, clinical. The voice I used to use when calling parents about failing students. Facts without emotion. Check with every major insurance company. See if Julian took out any policies. That could take a few days. You have 72 hours. My husband is planning to cash in on my death. Marcus nodded, gathered his papers, slid a business card across the table. "This is a friend of mine, retired police detective. He does personal security. If you feel unsafe..." "I'm not leaving my house," I interrupted. "That's exactly what they want. For me to disappear, to make it easier. No." I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. I'm staying. I'm playing my role. And I'm gathering every piece of evidence I need to make sure they spend the rest of their lives regretting they ever underestimated me. I drove home in a daze. The suburban streets of Atlanta blurred past. Magnolia trees, neat lawns, mailboxes painted with cheerful colors. The kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever happened, except it did. Behind every door, in every marriage, in every family. Hidden carefully behind curtains and smiles and casseroles brought to neighbors. Julian was home when I arrived, watching football, beer in hand. He looked up when I came in. "Where were you?" he asked. "Grocery shopping," I lied smoothly. "They were out of your favorite chips. Drove to 3 different stores." The lie came so easily. 47 years of practice. "You're a saint, Gloria." He turned back to the TV. "Don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd collect $500,000 in life insurance," I thought. "You'd sell my house for $380,000. You'd take my pension survivor benefits. You'd move to Florida with my daughter-in-law and live off money earned from my death." But out loud, I just said, "Want me to make some nachos for the game?" "That'd be great, babe." Babe. He hadn't called me that in 15 years. I made nachos. Extra cheese. His favorite. Served them with a smile, sat next to him on the couch and pretended to watch the game, and inside, I counted down. 21 days until their deadline. 21 days to gather evidence. 21 days to build a case so airtight that they'd never escape. 21 days until I stopped being the victim and became something much, much worse. Marcus called me on October 27th. 3 days later, I was at the grocery store, actually at the grocery store this time, when my phone buzzed. "Found it," he said without preamble. "Life insurance policy, $500,000, taken out on you 8 months ago." The frozen food aisle suddenly felt too cold. "Is that legal? Can he take out a policy on me without my signature?" In Georgia, if you're married, a spouse can take out a policy on the other spouse with their verbal consent. Julian called the insurance company, said you were right there agreeing, and forged your signature on the paperwork. They never verified. It happens more often than you'd think. Who's the beneficiary? Julian Patterson. Primary. Vanessa Patterson. Secondary. The floor wasn't solid anymore. I grabbed a freezer door handle to steady myself. "Mrs. Patterson? Are you there?" "They're splitting it," I whispered. "He gets $500,000 when I die. And if something happens to him, she gets it." That's not the worst part. Marcus's voice was grim. "I found the payment records. Guess who's been paying the premiums?" I already knew. "Our joint account, $247 a month. For 8 months, you've been paying for your own murder insurance." I started laughing. Right there in the frozen food aisle of Kroger on a Saturday afternoon. Laughed until tears ran down my face. Laughed until other shoppers started staring. Laughed until the laughter turned into something else. Something sharp and broken and furious. "Mrs. Patterson, I think you should call your lawyer. This is conspiracy to commit murder. This is—" "I know what this is," I said, wiping my eyes. "And yes, I'm calling Patricia today. But Marcus, I need you to do one more thing." "What?" "I need complete surveillance on Julian and Vanessa. Every meeting, every conversation. I need to know if they're actively planning something, if there's a timeline, if they're just talking about it, or if they're actually preparing to—" I couldn't say the word. "I'll have someone on them 24/7. But Mrs. Patterson, if there's any indication they're about to act, I'm calling the police. I don't care about evidence, or cases, or revenge. I'm not letting you die for this." "Deal," I said. "But until then, we document everything. Every single thing." That night, I made Julian's favorite dinner. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans cooked with bacon, sweet tea so sugary it could rot teeth. He ate 3 pieces of chicken, complained his knee was acting up, Fell asleep in his recliner by 8 p.m., snoring loud enough to shake the windows. Stood in the doorway watching him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd built a life with. This man who was calmly planning to murder me and steal everything I'd worked for. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Patricia Rodriguez called me on October 29th. We need to meet. My office. Tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. The next morning, I sat in her office with Marcus and Patricia and a third person, a detective from the Atlanta Police Department Fraud Division. Sergeant Michael Torres, late 40s, looked like he'd seen every kind of human ugliness there was. Mrs. Patterson, Patricia began, we've reviewed all the evidence, the recordings, the bank statements, the forged deed attempt, the life insurance policy. We have enough to charge your husband and your daughter-in-law with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and potentially conspiracy to commit murder. Potentially? I asked. Sergeant Torres spoke up. The search history and insurance policy are concerning, but they're not proof of active planning. People Google things all the time. Insurance policies can be explained away. What we need is direct evidence. A conversation where they discuss harming you, a purchase of materials, something concrete, so they get away with planning to kill me because they haven't done it yet? No, Patricia said firmly. They get charged with fraud and forgery now. Those charges are solid. We can make them stick. The potential murder charges come later, if we find more evidence. But Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you something difficult. What? How far are you willing to go to catch them? I looked at her, at Marcus, at Sergeant Torres. 3 people who'd become my army in the span of 2 weeks. 3 people who believed me when my own family was trying to destroy me. As far as necessary, I said quietly. Whatever it takes. Patricia nodded slowly. Then here's what we're going to do. We're going to let them think they're winning. We're going to let them proceed with their plans. November 15th, they think they're listing your house. We're going to let them believe that's happening. But the deed, the county clerk already flagged it. It won't go through, but they don't know that yet. They think it's being processed, so they'll keep planning, keep talking, keep making mistakes. And when they make enough mistakes, I asked. Sergeant Torres leaned forward. We arrest them, publicly, spectacularly, at the real estate office when they try to sign the listing papers. In front of the agent, in front of whoever they bring with them, we make sure everyone knows exactly what they tried to do. And my son? My voice cracked. Daniel doesn't know any of this. He still thinks his wife is faithful. He's still paying. For their affair with a loan he thinks is for a business. Patricia's expression softened. We'll tell him, before the arrest. We'll show him everything, give him the choice to be there or not. But Mrs. Patterson, he deserves to know the truth. All of it. I nodded, couldn't speak, because the truth was going to destroy my son, break his marriage, shatter his image of his father, ruin his life almost as much as it had ruined mine. But he deserved to know. Everyone deserved to know. There's one more thing, I said, looking at Patricia. Something I need to do myself, something personal. What? I thought about that bottle in Julian's glove compartment. The one that started this whole nightmare. The one that represented everything ugly about what they were doing. I need to send them a message, I said slowly. Before the arrests. Before everything explodes. I need them to know that they didn't get away with it. That someone saw. That someone knew. What kind of message? Marcus asked carefully. The kind they'll never forget. Patricia studied me for a long moment. Nothing illegal, nothing that could compromise the case. Nothing illegal, I agreed. Just poetic justice. She smiled that shark smile again. I like the way you think, Mrs. Patterson. I left that meeting with a plan, a timeline, and for the first time in weeks, something that felt like power instead of powerlessness. November 1st, 14 days until their deadline. 14 days until they thought they were stealing my house. I went to Home Depot, walked the aisles like I'd done 1,000 times before, buying supplies for household repairs, gardening, projects. Today, I was buying something different. Gorilla. Glue. Super glue. The industrial strength kind. The kind that warns on the label, bonds in seconds. Skin contact requires immediate medical attention. The clerk didn't even look twice at the old woman buying adhesive. Probably thought I was fixing a broken plate or a wobbly table leg. If only he knew. That night, while Julian snored in his recliner, I went to his car, opened the glove compartment, found that bottle of personal lubricant he kept there for his Thursday afternoon meetings with my daughter-in-law, took it inside, poured it down the drain, cleaned the bottle carefully, refilled it with crystal clear superglue, thinned slightly with acetone to match the original consistency. My hands were perfectly steady as I worked. Chemistry teacher knowledge from decades. Ago, the right proportions, the right mixture, indistinguishable by sight. Put the bottle back exactly where I'd found it, exactly the same angle, exactly the same position. Then I waited. November 5th, 10 days to go. Marcus called. They just scheduled another meeting. Thursday, November 7th. Same motel, same time, 2 p.m. Good, I said calmly. Let them go. Make sure you're watching. I want everything documented. Mrs. Patterson, what did you do? Justice, I said. I did justice. November 7th, Thursday afternoon. I was at home making pot roast when Marcus called. His voice was shaking. I'd never heard him sound like that before. Mrs. Patterson, oh my God. Mrs. Patterson, you need to turn on the news. Channel 2, right now. I turned on the TV, and there it was, breaking news. The Starlight Inn on Buford Highway, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, camera crews, a reporter standing in the parking lot, barely containing her shocked amusement. We're here at the Starlight Inn, where an unusual emergency has unfolded this afternoon. According to sources, 2 individuals became stuck together in what authorities are calling an extremely compromising position. Fire and rescue crews spent over an hour carefully separating the couple, who have been transported to Grady Memorial Hospital. Names are not being released at this time, but witnesses report hearing screaming from room 14 around 2:30 p.m. The camera panned to show paramedics loading 2 gurneys into an ambulance, both figures covered with sheets, both clearly in extreme distress. Authorities say the couple apparently used an adhesive product by mistake, thinking it was a personal lubricant. The adhesive bonded skin to skin almost instantly. Medical experts say separation likely required solvents and possibly minor surgical intervention. Both individuals are expected to survive, though sources say the embarrassment may be permanent. I sat on my couch, stared at the TV, and smiled. Not a nice smile, the smile of someone who just won the first battle in a war she was absolutely going to win. My phone rang. Patricia, please tell me you didn't do what I think you did. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said sweetly. I've been home all day making pot roast. Would you like the recipe? She was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing. Deep, genuine laughter that sounded like justice itself. The charges stick, she said finally. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, all of it. But Mrs. Patterson, you just gave us a gift, because now they're going to be too humiliated, too desperate, too panicked to think clearly. They're going to make mistakes, big ones. Good, I said. Let them make mistakes. We'll be watching. The whole city's going to be watching now, Patricia said. This is already viral. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. The superglue affair. That's what they're calling it. You just became a legend. I watched the news coverage continue. Watched the reporters trying not to laugh. Watched the neighbors being interviewed, shocked and delighted. Watched my quiet suburban neighborhood become the center of the biggest scandal Atlanta had seen in years. And I thought about 8 more days. 8 more days until November 15th. 8 more days until they tried to sell my house. 8 more days until the police arrested them in front of the real estate agent and my son and God and everybody. 8 more days until justice. The superglue was just the beginning. The real pain was about to start. November 8th, 7 a.m. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Patterson, this is Grady Memorial Hospital. Your husband, Julian Patterson, is requesting you come to the hospital. He's in room 437. What happened? I asked, injecting exactly the right amount of concerned wife worry into my voice. There was an incident. He's stable, but he's asking for you. I'll be right there. I took my time getting ready, applied lipstick, fixed my hair, chose a nice cardigan. The blue one Julian always said made me look dignified. Today, I wanted to look very, very dignified. The drive to Grady took 30 minutes. I parked, walked through the lobby, took the elevator to the 4th floor, found room 437. Outside the door stood Sergeant Torres, in plain clothes, arms crossed. Mrs. Patterson, he said quietly. You ready for this? I've been ready for 47 years. He opened the door. Julian was in the bed closest to the window. Vanessa was in the bed next to him. A curtain separated them, but I could see both their faces. Both of them looked like they wanted to die. Julian's hands were wrapped in gauze. So were Vanessa's. Bandages covered other areas I didn't want to think about. The air smelled like antiseptic and humiliation. Gloria. Julian's voice was hoarse, broken. Thank God you're here. There was an accident, a horrible accident. The lubricant, it was contaminated or something. I don't know what happened, but we got stuck, and I know what happened, I said calmly. He stopped talking. His face went white. You know? Vanessa's voice from behind the curtain. Sharp with panic. I know everything. I walked further into the room, stood at the foot of Julian's bed, looked at this man who'd shared my life for 47 years. I know about the affair. I know about the forged deed. I know about the $8,000 you stole from our joint account. I know about the life insurance policy. And I know you were planning to kill me. Julian's mouth opened. No sound came out. Vanessa started. I know you were sleeping with your husband's father, I continued, turning to look at her. I know you used Daniel's $15,000 loan to fund your affair. I know you were planning to sell my house and run away together. And I know you thought I was too old, too stupid, too blind to notice. Gloria, please. Julian found his voice. I can explain. Explain what? My voice was still calm, quiet. The voice I used to use in parent-teacher conferences right before I failed someone's child. Explain how you told Vanessa I was half asleep for 20 years? Explain how you said I wouldn't recognize a clue if it bit me in the ass? Explain how you researched making my death look like a heart attack? His face crumbled. You heard the recordings, every word, every laugh, every plan. I pulled my phone from my purse, opened the photos, held it up so he could see. These are bank statements showing every theft. These are copies of the forged deed you tried to file. This is the life insurance policy you took out on me 8 months ago. The one I've been paying for with my own money. How did you? I'm a retired teacher, Julian, not an idiot. For 47 years, I balanced our checkbook by hand. You thought that made me outdated, slow, easy to fool. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It made me detail-oriented, careful, aware of every single penny that moved through our accounts. Vanessa started crying behind the curtain. Loud, dramatic. Sobs. This is all a misunderstanding. I love Daniel. Julian and I were just friends. We were planning a surprise anniversary party for you. With forged documents and a $500,000 life insurance policy? I asked. That's a very permanent kind of party. The door opened. Patricia Rodriguez walked in, followed by Sergeant Torres in his official capacity now, and 2 uniformed Atlanta police officers. Mr. Julian Patterson, Sergeant Torres said formally. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, attempted theft by deception, and conspiracy to commit murder." "Murder?" Julian's voice cracked. I didn't. "We have your search history," Patricia said coldly. "We have the insurance policy. We have recorded conversations. We have enough to charge you and hold you while we investigate further." The officers moved to Julian's bed. One of them started reading Miranda rights while the other prepared handcuffs. "You can't arrest me. I'm injured. I'm in a hospital." Julian tried to sit up, gasped in pain, fell back. "We have medical clearance," Sergeant Torres said. "You're stable. You're under arrest." They turned to Vanessa's bed. "Vanessa Patterson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, adultery in furtherance of fraud, and theft by deception." "This is insane!" Vanessa shrieked. "Gloria, please, we can talk about this. Woman to woman, you know how men are. Julian seduced me. I was vulnerable. My marriage was struggling." "Your marriage was struggling because you were sleeping with your father-in-law," I said flatly, "and using your husband's money to do it." "Daniel doesn't know." She was pleading now, mascara running down her face. "Please don't tell Daniel. It will destroy him. Think of your grandchildren." "I am thinking of my grandchildren," I said quietly. "I'm thinking they deserve better than a mother who'd betray their father and conspire to murder their grandmother. For money." The police handcuffed both of them to their beds. Hospital policy. They'd be transported to county jail as soon as they were medically cleared. "Mrs. Patterson," Patricia said, "there's someone outside who needs to speak with you." My heart sank. I knew who it was. Daniel. I walked out of that hospital room and into the hallway. My son stood there, face pale, hands shaking. Marcus stood next to him. They'd clearly just shown him everything. "Mom?" Daniel's voice was small, young, like he was 7 years old again, asking me to fix something broken. "Is it true?" I couldn't speak, just nodded. "All of it? The affair? The money? The Dad trying to steal the house?" His voice was rising. "The life insurance? They were planning to—" "Yes," I whispered. "All of it." Daniel's knees buckled. Marcus caught him, helped him to a chair in the waiting area. My son put his head in his hands and started crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like something inside him was breaking. I sat next to him, put my hand on his back. The same back I'd patted when he had nightmares as a child. His knees, when his first girlfriend broke his heart in 10th grade. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." "You knew." He looked up at me, eyes red. "You knew for weeks. You didn't tell me. I needed evidence. I needed to make sure they couldn't destroy it, couldn't run, You didn't trust me." His voice was hollow. "You thought I was part of it." "No, I thought you were another victim." And I was right. I gripped his hand. "Daniel, they used your loan money, the $15,000 you borrowed for Vanessa's business. That paid for their affair. The motel rooms, the dinners, all of it." He pulled his hand away, stood up, paced. "I'm such an idiot. Such a stupid, blind idiot. How did I not see it? How did I not—" "Because you loved them," I said simply. "You trusted them. That's not stupidity. That's being a good person surrounded by bad ones." I defended her. He spun. Around. "When you'd make comments about her spending, when you'd suggest she was distant, I told you to stop being judgmental. I said you were jealous of her youth. His voice broke. "I chose her over you so many times. You chose your wife over your mother. That's what you're supposed to do. But she wasn't acting like a wife. She was with Dad." He couldn't finish, sank back into the chair. "How am I supposed to tell my boys? How do I explain that their grandfather and their mother—" "You tell them the truth," Patricia said, walking over. "Age-appropriate truth. That sometimes adults make very bad choices, that it's not their fault, that they're loved by the people who matter." Daniel looked at her. "Who are you?" "Patricia Rodriguez. your mother's attorney. And Daniel, I need to tell you something. Your mother has been protecting you this whole time, not just from the truth, from financial ruin. What do you mean? Patricia sat down across from him. Your wife and your father were planning to steal your mother's house, sell it for $380,000. They were also planning to collect $500,000 in life insurance when your mother died. And yes, they were researching how to make that death look natural. Daniel's face went gray. Your mother has $1.2 million in investment, accounts that neither your father nor your wife knew about. She's been financially independent this entire time, and the first thing she did when she discovered this conspiracy was hire investigators and lawyers to make sure you were protected. Protected? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. She made sure the evidence was airtight so your wife couldn't claim half of your assets in a divorce. She documented every penny of marital money that was stolen so you can recover it. She worked with police to build a criminal case so your wife faces consequences beyond just a divorce settlement. Patricia leaned forward. Your mother has been fighting for you even when you didn't know there was a fight. Daniel looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. You did all that? He asked. You're my son, I said simply. I'd do anything for you. He stood up, walked over to me, pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe, and he cried. We both cried, standing in that hospital hallway while police officers led his father and his wife away in handcuffs. I'm so sorry, Mom, he sobbed into my shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry. Shh, you have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. I held him tighter. We're going to get through this, together, as a family, a real family. We stood there for a long time, mother and son, the only two people in our family who'd been loyal, who'd been true, who'd survived. When we finally pulled apart, Daniel's face was set with something I hadn't seen there before. Determination. What happens now? He asked Patricia. Now? Now we go to the county courthouse. File divorce papers, file restraining orders, file for recovery of stolen assets. And tomorrow, when the news coverage starts, and it will start because this story is already viral, we make sure everyone knows exactly what your father and your wife tried to do. I want to be there, Daniel said firmly. For all of it, every hearing, every trial. I want them to see that they didn't just betray Mom. They betrayed me too, and I'm not going to let them forget it. Patricia smiled. Then let's go destroy them, legally, thoroughly, and permanently. November 15th, 1 week later, the day they'd planned to list my house. Instead, we stood in a courtroom. Judge Rachel, Winters presiding, 60 years old, no-nonsense expression, reputation for hating fraud cases. Perfect. Julian sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. His lawyer looked tired. Vanessa sat at a separate table with her own lawyer. They couldn't look at each other, couldn't look at us. The gallery was packed. Local news cameras, reporters, neighbors, everyone who'd heard about the superglue affair and wanted to see how it ended. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the state is charging Julian Patterson and Vanessa Patterson with conspiracy to commit first-degree fraud, forgery, theft by deception, and conspiracy to commit murder. We have extensive evidence including recorded conversations, forged documents, falsified insurance applications, and computer search histories indicating premeditation. Judge Winters looked at Julian, then at Vanessa. Her expression was carved from ice. I've reviewed the evidence packets, she said. Mr. Patterson, you attempted to steal a house from your wife of 47 years. You took out a life insurance policy on her without her genuine consent. You researched methods of making her death appear natural. Mrs. Vanessa Patterson, you conspired with your husband's father to defraud both your husband and your mother-in-law, while using marital funds to finance your affair. She paused. Let the silence stretch. This court finds probable cause for all charges. Both defendants will be held pending trial. Bail is set at $250,000 each. Julian's face collapsed. I don't have that kind of money. Gloria, please. We've been married for 47 years. You can't. I can, I said quietly from my seat in the gallery. And I will. Judge Winters banged her gavel. Additionally, I'm granting the plaintiff's request for immediate restraining orders. Neither defendant may contact Gloria Patterson, Daniel Patterson, or the minor children. Neither defendant may come within 500 feet of the Patterson residence or any property owned by Gloria Patterson. Your Honor, Julian's lawyer stood. My client is 72 years old. He has nowhere to go. The marital home belongs to his wife. Then he should have thought of that before attempting to forge documents to steal it, Judge Winters snapped. Bailiffs, remove the defendants. They led them away. Julian tried to turn, to make eye contact with me, to say something. I looked straight ahead, didn't acknowledge him, didn't give him the satisfaction of my attention. He was nothing to me now. Less than nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Mrs. Patterson, how do you feel about your husband's arrest? Mrs. Patterson, is it true you set a trap with superglue? Mrs. Patterson, what message do you have for other women in similar situations? Patricia stepped forward, hand raised. Mrs. Patterson will make one statement. The cameras focused on me. This was it. The moment the whole city was watching. The moment I could tell my truth. I stepped up to the microphones. For 47 years, I was a faithful wife, I said clearly. I was a dedicated mother. I was a hard-working teacher. I did everything right, everything expected, and my husband repaid me by trying to steal my house, my money, and my life. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled. But what my husband and my daughter-in-law didn't know is that I spent those same 47 years being careful, being smart, being prepared. I saved money they didn't know about. I kept records they didn't think mattered. I paid attention when they thought I was half asleep. I paused, let them hang on every word. And when I discovered what they were doing, I didn't fall apart. I didn't become a victim. I became strategic. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I protected my son and my assets. And I made sure they would face every legal consequence available. What about the superglue? A reporter shouted. I smiled, small, cold. Sometimes justice requires creativity. I have no further comment on that particular incident. The reporters laughed. Even some of the police officers standing nearby cracked. Smiles. My message to other women, I continued, don't assume you're powerless. Don't assume you're too old, too trusting, too unsophisticated to fight back. Pay attention. Keep records. Protect yourself. And when someone tries to destroy you, make sure they learn a very public lesson about underestimating retired teachers. The crowd actually applauded. Reporters shouted more questions, but Patricia ushered me to the car where Daniel was waiting. We drove away from the courthouse, away from the cameras, away from the wreckage of my marriage. You were amazing, Mom, Daniel said from the back seat. Absolutely amazing. I was truthful, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Viral, trending #1 on Twitter. Ha, superglue justice. You're a legend. I showed Daniel. He laughed for the first time in a week. Real laughter. The kind that meant maybe, eventually, we'd both be okay. So what now? He asked. What happens next? Looked out the window at Atlanta passing by. My city, my home, my life that I'd taken back from people who tried to steal it. Now, I said. Now we heal. Now we rebuild. Now we show those boys of yours where your father and your ex-wife spend years thinking about their choices in prison. How long do you think they'll get? Patricia answered from the front seat. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit murder? 10 to 20 years, each, if we're lucky. Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Good," he said finally. "That's good." And I realized my son was going to be okay. We were both going to be okay because we were survivors. We were fighters. We were Pattersons. And we didn't let anyone destroy us without one hell of a fight. May 15th, 2025. 6 months after the courthouse steps. 6 months after I became the superglue lady across the entire internet. I stood in my kitchen, in my house that nobody could ever take from me, making coffee on a Saturday morning. Spring sunlight poured through windows I'd had professionally cleaned last week. The kind of cleaning that costs $200 and makes everything sparkle like new. I could afford it now because I wasn't hiding anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Boys, want to come over for pancakes? That okay?" I smiled, typed back, "Always. See you at 10. 6 months ago, I'd been a woman who made herself invisible. Gray hair pulled back in the same tight bun I'd worn since 1985. Reading glasses on a chain around my neck. Cardigans in beige and gray and navy blue. Comfortable shoes with worn-down heels. Shoulders curved inward from decades of making myself smaller. I caught my reflection in the kitchen window now. My hair was shorter, cut into soft layers that framed my face, with subtle caramel highlights that took 20 years off my appearance. No more bun, no more tight, painful pulling, just natural waves that I'd learned to love. New glasses, modern frames in tortoiseshell, no chain, because I wasn't trying to be invisible anymore. A coral-colored blouse I'd bought at Nordstrom 2 weeks ago. The kind of thing I would have walked past before thinking it was too young or too expensive or not for women like me. It cost $120. I'd bought 3. Dark jeans that actually fit. New white sneakers. A silver bracelet my grandsons had. Helped me pick out at the jewelry store, laughing as I tried on different styles, encouraging me to, "Get the sparkly one, Grandma." I looked like someone who'd remembered she was allowed to take up space in the world. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. Daniel was always punctual. Some things never changed. I opened the door to find my son and my 2 grandsons, Michael, age DC 8, and Jason, age 6. Both boys immediately hugged my legs, shouting about a soccer game and a loose tooth, and could we make chocolate chip pancakes? "Please, please, please." "Of course we can," I said, ushering them inside. "Go wash your hands. You know where everything is?" The boys thundered toward the bathroom. Daniel lingered in the doorway, studying me. "You look happy, Mom," he said quietly. "Really happy." "I am," I said. And it was true. For the first time in years, maybe decades, it was completely, honestly true. Daniel had moved back to Atlanta after everything. Sold the house he'd shared with Vanessa, split the proceeds, used his half for a fresh start. He'd bought a small place in Decatur. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, 20 minutes from my house. We had dinner together twice a week. The boys slept over every other weekend. We were building something new, something honest, something that didn't have betrayal and lies rotting underneath. "Heard from the lawyers yesterday," Daniel said as we moved to the kitchen. "Trial date is set, September 12th. I poured him coffee. "Both of them?" "Both of them. Together." The prosecution said trying. Them separately would take too long and cost too much, so they're being tried jointly for conspiracy. I nodded. Didn't feel the sharp pain I used to feel when thinking about Julian and Vanessa. Now, it was just acknowledgement, like remembering a bad flu from years ago. Unpleasant, but distant. Part of the past. "How do you feel about testifying?" Daniel asked. "Ready," I said simply. "I've been ready since October." The truth was, I'd been preparing my testimony for months, working with Patricia, going over every detail, every conversation, every piece of evidence, making sure my words were clear, factual, devastating. Julian's lawyer had tried to negotiate a plea deal 3 times. Patricia rejected all of them, This was going to trial. This was going to be public. This was going to be a lesson. Vanessa's family reached out, Daniel said carefully. Her mother, asking if I'd write a character letter, asking for leniency. What did you say? I said no. He looked at me. She stole $15,000 from me. She destroyed our marriage. She conspired with my father to potentially murder my mother. I don't care if she cries in court. I don't care if her family thinks she's a good person deep down. She made her choices. Pride swelled in my chest. My son, my strong, honest son, who'd been broken by betrayal and had chosen to heal instead of hide. Good, I said. You deserve better than people who'd ask you to minimize your pain for their comfort. The boys came racing back. Pancakes! Pancakes! Can we help mix? For the next hour, my kitchen was chaos. Flour everywhere. Chocolate chips being sampled before they made it to the batter. Laughter. Sticky syrup fingers. Fighting over who got the biggest pancake. Normal. Healthy. Real. This was family. Not the performative version I'd maintained for 47 years. Not the careful image management and silent suffering. Just love. Just presence. Just people showing up honestly for each other. After breakfast, after Daniel and the boys left, with promises to see me Tuesday for dinner, I sat on my back porch with fresh coffee and my laptop. I'd started something new 2 months ago. Something that felt right. The Gloria Patterson Foundation for Women's Financial Literacy. I donated $300,000 of my $1.2 million to start it. Hired a director, created programs. We taught women, especially older women, divorced women, widowed women, how to manage money, how to invest, how to protect themselves financially, how to recognize the warning signs of financial abuse. We'd served 127 women so far, in just 2 months. The demand was overwhelming. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd been hiding money or who needed to learn how to build independence. My story had opened doors. The media coverage, initially embarrassing, then empowering, meant people listened when I talked. They took my foundation seriously. They donated. They volunteered. They told their friends. The superglue lady had become someone who actually helped people instead of just being a viral moment. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Patterson? This is Carol Henderson. You don't know me, but I saw your story on the news. I'm 63. My husband just drained our retirement account. I don't know what to do. My heart clenched. I knew that voice, that fear, that feeling of the ground disappearing beneath you. Carol, I said gently, take a breath. You're going to be okay. I'm going to help you. Can you tell me exactly what happened? We talked for 45 minutes. I connected her with Patricia's law firm, with Marcus for investigation services, with the foundation's financial counselor. Built her a lifeline. When we hung up, I sat for a moment in the spring sunshine, feeling something settle in my chest. Purpose. That's what this was. My pain had purpose now. My story had purpose. I'd turned the worst betrayal of my life into something that could help other women survive their own betrayals. My laptop pinged. Email from Marcus. Subject. Thought you'd want to know. Body. Julian's bail was revoked yesterday. He tried to contact you through a third party. Judge Winters added another charge, violation of restraining order. He's back in county jail, trial. In 4 months. Vanessa's bail stands, but she's living with her mother in Valdosta, working at a grocery store. Her real estate license was suspended pending outcome of trial. Both of them are broke. Legal fees have eaten everything. I read it twice. Felt nothing, not satisfaction. Not anger, just the neutral acknowledgement of facts. They'd made their choices. They were living with the consequences. That was justice. Simple, clean, final. I closed the laptop, looked at my backyard, the garden I'd planted in March, vegetables. and flowers mixed together in cheerful chaos. The bird feeder Daniel had installed, the patio furniture I'd bought myself, choosing bright cushions in yellow and blue instead of the practical brown Julian would have insisted on. My space, my choices, my life. At 7 p.m., I met 3 women at a wine bar in Midtown: Susan, Margaret, and Diane, all retired teachers, all divorced or widowed, all rebuilding their lives. We'd met at a foundation event and discovered we had more in common than financial trauma. We liked the same books, the same terrible reality TV shows, the same dark humor about aging and dating, and the absolute absurdity of starting over in our 60s and 70s. Gloria! Susan waved from a corner table. We ordered you the Chardonnay and the cheese plate. We're celebrating. Celebrating. What? Margaret closed on her condo today. She's officially a property owner at 71 years old. Margaret beamed. Never owned anything in my name before. My ex-husband controlled everything. Now I have a place that's mine, all mine. 1 bedroom, beautiful view, and nobody can take it from me. We toasted, laughed, shared stories, made plans for a trip to Savannah next month. This was my life now. Not perfect, not without scars, but mine, authentically, completely, joyfully, mine. At 10 p.m., I drove home to my house on Magnolia Street, pulled into my driveway, unlocked my door, walked into my space, poured myself a glass of water, comfortable pajamas, looked at the framed photo on my nightstand. Me and Daniel and the boys from last month, all of us laughing at something Jason had said. Real smiles, real joy. This was what mattered. Not the money I'd hidden, not the revenge I'd taken, not the viral fame or the foundation or the media coverage. This, family, honesty, freedom, peace. I'd spent 47 years being half asleep, being invisible, being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's teacher, never just being me. Now, I was awake, visible, completely, unapologetically myself. And if that meant being the superglue lady for the rest of my life, I could live with that. Because they'd tried to destroy me. They'd tried to steal everything I'd built. They'd tried to erase me, and instead, I'd erased them from my life and built something better. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, in my house, in my life that nobody could take from me anymore. Tomorrow, I'd teach a financial literacy class to 12 women at the community center. Tomorrow, I'd have lunch with Patricia to discuss the foundation's expansion. Tomorrow, I'd continue building this new life. But tonight, I was just Gloria Patterson, 68 years old, retired teacher, survivor, fighter, legend. And I was finally, completely, honestly happy. Justice tastes sweeter than revenge ever could. But I'd be lying if I said the superglue didn't help. Sometimes the best lessons require a little creativity. And sometimes the best life is the one you build after everything burns down. I'd burned it all down. And from the ashes, I'd built something beautiful. That was my real victory, not destroying them, becoming myself. And that, more than any courtroom verdict, was the ending I deserved.